On this episode of Sustainable Horizons.
Stacking all those together makes this niche type of recycling of this plastic film a huge issue.
One little problem, though. As of a month ago, the facility's closed.
Some of these corporations should throw their weight around. Guess what?
What?
We're back.
And today's topic is...
plastic film recycling.
Spicy.
Yeah, an interesting topic. Diving a little deep into plastic recycling. Into a niche, I guess. Did you know that in 2018, the U.S. generated 9 billion pounds of plastic film, according to the EPA?
I did not. I'm trying to picture... I feel like I can picture 9 billion pounds, but it's film.
Right. It's a lot thinner.
Yeah.
It's easier to compact.
That's way more than I would expect.
Yeah. And plastic film is more than just like the plastic bags or saran wrap that you have in your kitchen. So this will include boat wraps, hay bale wraps, blue wraps for sterilization in hospitals, and more. So just anything with a thin plastic membrane on stuff.
And honestly, that's what I picture most when I picture like plastic waste. To me, my mental image when you say like picture plastic pollution, I picture like a Target bag floating in the wind.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel
like a plastic bag? Ahead of our time with that one.
Yeah.
I'd agree that I think plastic bags have been kind of at the forefront of plastic pollution because it's so single use a lot of times. And I know like cities like ours in Minneapolis here, there's actually a 5-cent charge on every plastic bag that goes to the city. I believe it goes to the city, but stores have to charge you for every plastic bag that you use. So they're encouraging you to go towards alternative solutions, whether that be paper bags that are easy to recycle, or the hope is a cloth tote bag that you can reuse over and over again. But estimates today are between 12 to 15 billion pounds a year of plastic film being produced. So that's up a significant amount from the 2018 9 billion statistic.
Well, and I've actually been working on a project relating to this, talking with farmers about hay bale wrap. I'm sure a lot of people have been driving through farm fields and they see just those large hay bales. Those all get wrapped in plastic, and they do that to preserve the nutrients and makes it last longer. One of them was walking me through this whole process of if you completely wrap it, it anaerobically digests, which then causes it to ferment, and it makes it a little sweeter. So all the farm animals love it.
That is fun.
But he also lamented that for each bale, he said that you get about a basketball size chunk of plastic at the end. And sometimes that'll blow off into the wind if it's super windy that day and you don't do a good job at putting it away. It's a big problem. And most of these farms have anywhere from a few dozen to 1,000 plus bales that they're being wrapped in plastic. So it's a huge problem. And it's not just your shopping bag. It's all these different industries like you had mentioned at the top.
Yeah. And I think about Minnesota has a lot of lakes, so we have a lot of boats. And the boat wrapping places or boat storage places tend to be on these major highways. You can just easily see. And all winter long, you see hundreds of boats with their blue caps on them because they get plastic wrap so that they're weather sealed for winter. And then they're stored at these locations. That, like we talked about earlier, is one of the things that is considered plastic film, and which is kind of hard to recycle. So some challenges with this is it lacks density, so it makes it hard to collect and ship in an efficient manner. And if you talk in LCA terms, shipping is such a huge part of the emissions that go into the total carbon footprint of a product. And so when you do these plastic film, it may be easier to ship on the front end because you can tightly wrap it in these coils. And that seems easy to ship, and you can get a lot of product, a lot of places pretty fast. So it's efficient on the front end, but then when you go then to recycle it, you have that opposite issue of now it's all poofed out and there's a lot of air pockets and it's really hard to move from one location to another efficiently.
Because it's like you picture, I think a lot of people have the one plastic bag filled with a lot of plastic bags underneath their sink or something.
Yes.
If you really squish that down, it's pretty small. It's not that much plastic because you can send the semi-truckload to pick up, if you do have a central location, to pick up all these bags. But in reality, it's only like 5-10% of that whole semi truck is the actual plastic material that when you go to process it and recycle it, it wasn't even worth the emissions to drive and pick that up or the money, the cost.
And another issue with it is a lot of these films need to be clean. So you think of the hay bale. There's a lot of organic matter on that is just not compatible with the recycling process for plastics. We've all heard that you need to rinse out your plastics before you recycle them. So bottles, trays, whatever we might have from fast food or from just grocery shopping in general. Good practice is you rinse it out before you put it into the recycling so it doesn't contaminate the rest of the recyclables. Same thing needs to happen with these plastic films. So we really have to take into account the multiple challenges that go into just the specific type of recycling or the specific type of plastic that needs to be recycled. And to top it all off, the final thing, just like most plastics that we have in our home, they're not all made of the same chemical makeup. So they can't all be recycled the same way. And that's something that we fight daily on the regular side of recycling. That's why we have 1 through 7 as numbers. And I still have no idea unless I have a cheat sheet, like what it is. It's just it's so hard to remember as you're looking at all of these things. So stacking all those together makes this like niche type of recycling of this plastic film a huge issue.
Yeah, but that 9 to 12 to 15 billion pounds per year is evident that there is a large market for recycling, which is why I was really excited of this company called Myplas, Myplas. They started ramping up back in 2023. They are a company based in Rogers, Minnesota that set out to solve this whole problem of plastic film recycling. So it's a South African company that ended up landing in Minnesota after a $13 million investment by companies like General Mills, Schwann's Company, Target, Ecolab, and they also got a $1.4 million grant from the state of Minnesota. So there's a lot of companies working. A lot of the companies that I mentioned are part of this organization called MBOLD, which is this circularity group in Minnesota, which we'll talk about circularity later. And one of the cool things about Myplas and one of the most innovative parts of their process was that they're actually able to accept this agricultural plastic that it didn't have to be perfectly clean, which is fairly revolutionary for this industry.
That's huge.
Yeah, it really is. So just to quickly run through their process, put very simply, these start as bales that were gathered at their sites. So it's bales of plastic placed on a conveyor belt. A sorter will pull out the tightly twisted clumps. Then the conveyor belt shakes out the unwanted parts. After that, the machine then shears that plastic into strips, then further down into flakes. After this, they're washed, dried, and pelletized. And at that point, they're ready to be recycled back into plastic film. So what I mean by pelletized is they're tiny little pellets. They're usually very dense. If you buy raw plastic material, it looks like the same thing.
Easy to melt down and reproduce back into whatever you need it to be.
Exactly. So it was reported back in December of this past year of 2023 that when the facility ramps up production, it'll employ up to 200 people and recycle near 90 million pounds of plastic waste each year. So what's that, about 1/100th of the overall plastic film problem? But I mean, that's still a pretty good chunk. So it's 1%. So that 9 million pounds is enough to circle the globe in pellet wrap more than 135 times. Cool way of putting it.
That's crazy. Love when we do perspectives and sustainability. It's always something. How many cars can you put around the planet? Things like that. It's always...
My default always with that is like, okay, cool. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I know. We put it in a scale that nobody can comprehend, but we go...
It's the same weight as 6.5 Eiffel Towers. I'm like, I don't know how much that weighs.
I've never picked up the Eiffel Tower. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So Myplas, huge, like so exciting, right?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, like that's a lot of jobs here in the States. So I can understand why the state wants to fund it and give a grant and all that kind of stuff. Because we have been a little bit on the progressive side here in Minnesota. And definitely, I think, look for solutions to some of these common day problems.
Yeah. One little problem, though. As of about a month ago, the facility's closed.
That sucks.
Yeah, at least for now. So why are they closed? Why is this huge, revolutionary, innovative process with all this investment, why did it suddenly close? No one is buying their material.
Why? Is it not pure enough for them?
I don't know. There's not enough information out on it. But I think that this whole case kind of perfectly embodies the importance and challenges of that word circularity that I mentioned earlier, which, for those of you who don't know, circularity in its economics term means it's a product or service or resource that is renewed or regenerated rather than wasted. As in a circular economy, when a product or resource is used, it's then recycled, composted, or reused in a way that allows it to go back into a new life cycle or supply chain. And in this case of Myplas, I think they absolutely crushed steps 1 and 2. They formed partnerships with big plastic producers and Target, which we've mentioned, Ecolab, General Mills, etc. They then built the infrastructure, they built the processes, but it kind of seemed that they were just hoping that step 3, having a market, come to fruition. They kind of just seemed to hope that that would materialize, but as of right now, it just simply has not.
Yeah, they gave supply before demand necessarily existed. I'd be curious to know what the difference is, because there has to be, when it's a recycled product, there is just some degradation to that supply, right? And I wonder if it's just enough so that these plastic manufacturing facilities deem it not worthy for their products or would lower the quality of their products. But we use recycled plastics all the time. I mean, you go to the grocery store and it's like 80% recycled plastic, 70%, that's a thing that exists. So I'm curious why nobody's picked them up.
So they do say that this material can be recycled up to 12 times.
So it doesn't lose a lot then.
No, that's pretty good in recycling terms.
Especially on the first 1 or 2. Yeah.
Because I think paper is only 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, you start to lose the fiber strength on those.
Yeah, it's the size gets real small. Which, fun fact, egg cartons are not recyclable because they are made of the last little bit of paper fibers that are big enough to use.
That's why they're compostable.
That's why they're compostable and not recyclable. It's a little bonus factoid for y'all.
I mean, it kind of looks like paper mache, which I essentially equate to the very end of the paper cycle.
So as of right now, all of their employees are furloughed. Operations are shut down. I kind of have hope. I mean, when the likes of General Mills, Schwann's, Target, Ecolab, as well as the state has put in this much money, they're not going away. Plus, all of these companies are in contact with plastic film suppliers, which means that I'm sure that there are people out there that are drumming up business of like, hey, this product, it's there. It's just, you kind of wish they would have done that in the first place.
Yeah, I would imagine that the Targets and General Mills of the world just have to flex or put pressure on, I think, their manufacturers more than anything. And I don't know what their investment is on that side, if they own part of the operation or if it's just a grant money because they have charity money they can give out and that was what they supplied to this company. But I imagine that they can put pressure on their manufacturers to induce change, right? We know as a society, people and our choices induce change. But yeah, I can imagine that some of these corporations should throw their weight around to kind of force some circularity, at least within the state.
Yeah, like I said, I really don't see this place going away. But it also, it highlights the challenges of circularity, that even when you have all these major players and government, everything involved, it's still very difficult to put together a seemingly easy problem. It's not the easiest thing, but there's a lot of this waste. They built the technology, they built the infrastructure.
They did the hardest part.
They already did the hardest part, exactly. They just need to sell it.
But that is in and of itself a challenge, I'm sure they're working hard at it or finding somebody somewhere. And maybe it is, sometimes it's the economics of somebody wants it, but maybe they're in Ohio or Texas.
Or China.
Yeah, and you're like, I'm not shipping across the world or across the country because suddenly the sustainability thing we're trying to do, it doesn't make sense anymore when you start to add in all those carbon emissions again.
Yeah. This was a super interesting case study in plastic film recycling, and I think it'll be definitely something to keep an eye on. And I would also conjecture that this won't be the only facility built. Even if this one does, quote unquote, fail, it's at least a model for others to improve upon.
Right. Yeah. They know where their downfalls are and how they can come in and start over, start from there, move forward.
I'll be interested to see what happens.
Yeah, we'll have to definitely do a follow-up episode.
Little update.
Yeah. That's the funnest part, is watching things progress in sustainability, in my opinion. I look back on some of the things I was watching in college, right as I was getting into like deeply studying sustainability. And you look at like Four Oceans when they were just a baby company. And, you know, I had so many bracelets from them because I believed so hard in like what they were doing. And now you look at how wide that operation has grown and how they not only just collect from the ocean, but now they go to the root source and collect from rivers. And same thing with the ocean cleanup crew. And they're on like Model 6 right now. And I remember when Model 1 came out and thought it was just this crazy idea that this person wanted to clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch in 30 years. And I was like, that's just so cool to see those years later and where they've gone and how much of an impact they've had. So I have hope for them. And I think that's super important in sustainability, is hope that somebody's going to keep pushing and doing this and it'll eventually make a difference. Well, that's all we have this time. A short and sweet little episode for you guys.
Until next time.
Until next time.